A big hello to fellow teachers. Welcome to the Eduwell podcast, a show created for teachers, by teachers, with teachers. I'm Alex Bush.
And I'm Chelsea Henderson. With over 30 years of combined teaching experience, we're here to help you find balance in your professional and personal lives.
Join us as we dive into a well of information, exploring insights, strategies, and practical tips that you can apply both within and beyond your classroom.
So whether you're new to teaching or a seasoned expert, this podcast is for you. Let's be well
and do well together. Welcome back to Eduwell. This is our third episode that focuses on rest. It's one of the best things that you can do for yourself in your work life and in your home life. Today, we are diving into the well to scoop out 3 ideas to help us to get some of that rest that we keep on talking about. This series has been a 3-parter, and we talked about the different types of rest. We talked about why rest is important. And today, we are really going to talk about how we're going to make rest happen. So Chelsea, why don't you get us started?
All right. Well, first of all, I know that it's taken some trial and error for me and some practice to actually get this rest into my life daily, which is really helpful for what we talked about in the last episode: productivity, health, and of course, showing up for ourselves and others. The first thing that we really need to do when it comes to getting rest is to get intentional about it. Think about what your vision is for rest. Honestly, close your eyes. It's almost like you're in a resting position, and think about your best kinds of rest. Is it sleeping? Well, we all need sleep. We have to get sleep, of course. Is it being out in nature? Is it relaxing on the couch? Is it sitting in silence? That's something I like to do, especially after school. Do you want more of these things in your life? Because we can get this rest into our lives, but we have to think about really getting intentional about it. So making decisions to actually infuse rest into our lives. Now, if you're a teacher, you're already good at planning a schedule, blocking off time, and getting things done. So ask yourself, where does rest fit into your calendar? For me, there needs to be set times in my day where I'm getting the rest, and I don't mess with sleep, that's for sure. I definitely make sure to make sleep a priority in my home. So that is a form of very important rest that I make sure that I get.
All right. So I just want to touch upon a few things that you mentioned that really kind of made me think about clarifying. And it's the piece about intentionality and the different types of rest and what rest looks like specifically for you. So Chelsea, I know that for you, there's things that fill your bucket and they're different from the things that fill my bucket and give me rest. For one person, a walk outside might be a restful activity that really improves quality of life and gives you much needed rest. For other people, that does not feel like rest. So I think a key to this is identifying, like you said, what works for you. We're surrounded by social media, a lot of aspirational things. Like I'm thinking about Pinterest and TikTok and Facebook and what everyone else is doing that brings them rest. So being able to genuinely identify what works for you is a piece of the puzzle that I think is a first step. Like you have to be able to name what your rest is.
Exactly. So getting intentional really means thinking about the things in your life that are draining your energy. Can any of these things be removed and replaced with rest? An example I can think of in my life when I wasn't giving myself proper rest was when my children were very young. And I think this is a difficult time for any parent to get proper rest when you have very young children. But I was jumping through hoops so that I could coach sports teams at my school. And we have a big staff who would have been more than willing to jump in and coach a sport or take over. But I didn't ask for that. I was putting pressure on myself rather than asking for help or stepping away, which meant that I was actually losing a short window of rest between being a teacher and then being a parent. So I wasn't really managing my time properly so that I could include rest in my life. I could have done it, but I didn't really realize it at the time. So that brings us to our second point on it's very important to make the time for rest. It's not just going to pop up in your life, especially when you're very busy with your work and your personal life. So we need to make time for rest. Big chunks of rest can be very relaxing and revitalizing. The summer breaks and the breaks throughout the year are imperative for resetting our bodies and our minds as teachers. But we also know that small actions equal big results. And this is a theory that applies to various aspects of our lives, including, of course, rest.
I think those small actions are the key to success. I mean, what person has total control of their time in huge chunks? It's easier to manage those little chunks. And as you're kind of talking about little things that can happen in small chunks of time, I'm visualizing a couple of the things that I do. One of them is when I'm driving from one space to another and I'm wearing one hat, taking it off, going into another arena and putting on another hat. I have now kind of incorporated a moment where I pause, I look around my car, I make sure I have everything I need to be successful. I take a deep breath. Sometimes I'll take 5 minutes before I have to be on again. And I find that those moments of very quick rest and mindfulness set me up for success, but also prevent all those mistakes that we talk about, right? Going in and forgetting something is something that would happen if you're not taking the time to really think about what you're up to, what you're doing.
Right. And let's think about our days at school. We're in some overstimulated environments and we can be very overwhelmed in, one day alone. So building some of those portions of peace into our day is essential for regulating ourselves actually and others.
I'm just visualizing, our mornings in the middle of winter where you've got, the bags of marking, you've got the lunch kit, you've got boxes that you're bringing of books so that you can set them up in your classroom and you're going back and forth. And inevitably, while you're doing this and your hands are freezing, you drop your keys. There's all these things that impact the rest of your day when you're not mindful or you're not getting those moments of rest or mindfulness. And I just really find that hitting pause in these small moments can make a huge difference.
Right. So doing that in our workday can come in the form of taking that short walk at lunchtime or on a break, sitting in quiet when the opportunity arises. Get this, even sitting at your desk, crossing your hands and resting your head on them for 30 seconds can actually reset your nervous system. And this restores a sense of calm. You know why that is?
Why is that?
It's due to the stimulation of an acupuncture point in the forehead.
That is fantastic. All along, people who've been doing that, even though sometimes you don't realize why, there's a scientific reason.
Beneficial to our health.
Love it.
Now, depending on your personal life, you might feel like you're just as busy at home as you are at work. So let's touch on trying to be consistent in including rest in your home life. You've got people to see, you've got places to go, people who need you. And this is where we really need to get serious about our next point, which would be setting boundaries around rest.
Setting boundaries, one of my favorite things, something that took me many, many, many years to realize the benefit of setting boundaries, both at work and at home and just in general everywhere. And I have really enjoyed just the other day, actually, watching a colleague set up boundaries with a student. And I observe and I'm always learning from others in how to do it. And I think with setting boundaries, sometimes the impression that people get when you say no is that you're being difficult or you're hurting feelings. But there's ways to set boundaries that are really beautiful that maintains the relationship with the person who you're setting boundaries with. So I'm going to give an example from the other day. I was working on something at school and it was kind of, it was a very busy day and it was an event. All right. And it took a lot of concentration and there were a lot of moving pieces. And a student came up to me and they were very excited about an accomplishment that they had had. And I knew that I was not going to be able to give them what they needed in that moment. And I needed space and kind of a restful moment, actually, speaking of rest. And I said, I would love to hear about this accomplishment, but I'm very distracted right now. And I want to give you all the time and energy so I can really hear all about it and give you my entire focus. Can we talk about this tomorrow? And that's a really good example of setting boundaries and making sure that you're preserving the relationship with your student or, if it's at home with your family. And setting boundaries is really asking for what you need in a moment or in a situation and it's key to the rest piece, because if you're not kind of leaning on people and asking for what you need, asking for help, advocating for what you can and cannot do, you can't get to rest, because everyone is looking for a piece of your energy, Chelsea, as a teacher all the time. Yeah. And then plus we have, everyone is looking for pieces of your energy at home. And that's not a bad thing. I love that I'm someone as a teacher who gets to give and share energy. I bet you are too.
Yeah. And you know what I think is great about setting boundaries is that you're role modeling something that's so important for younger people to learn. And when they see that, they learn that it's okay to set boundaries, because they need their own boundaries too. And then it's reciprocated, whether it's at school in your classroom or at home, and you're teaching them how to do it in a polite, respectful way that, as you said, preserves the relationship.
And I really love that you brought that point up about the importance of modeling with students. And that includes with our own kids, let's say, because we live in a society where everything is so accessible all the time. We have instant gratification. We get information, so quickly, so easily. Everything is quick. It's hard to understand that it can't always be right now because I want it. And I think we're setting students up for failure if we don't start modeling. No, that's not real life. It's not always right when you want it because you want it. And so instead of thinking about setting boundaries in a way where you're kind of putting a box around yourself and you're impenetrable, think about it as a learning opportunity for others around you. And that includes peers. There are people who want to say yes to everything to the point where they have shut down and said no. Like they've basically been saying no to their own needs for years. Right. I think it's important for all of society, basically to start figuring out what works and what doesn't work, because otherwise you have a bunch of miserable, tired, unrested people walking around. And that's not good for anyone.
When you're saying yes, you're saying no to rest. So that's, like you said, that's not good for anyone. So with the boundaries, we'll just do a quick review here. First, we have to figure out what we want the boundary to be. And then we need to clearly state it to others or even to ourselves, give ourselves boundaries while preserving the relationship, like you talked about. And then we're going to want to try to maintain it. So there needs to be consistency there. And so it takes some work and it takes some front loading, but eventually you develop a habit of making those boundaries so that you can make time to include rest into your life.
I don't know if you can hear this in my voice, Chels, but it's June and I don't have the same power and energy in my voice alone. I'm losing it, but it's not coming from the belly. The passion is the passion is light right now. I am tired, and I'm going to guess that you are too.
Yeah, it's like what you were saying in the last episode about how you start your week on Monday and you're excited and you've got some energy, and then by Friday you're exhausted. And now we're looking at that as kind of a parallel of the whole school year, where we started this podcast going into September and we were super excited and pumped up. And we had all this energy. In fact, we talked about energy and we talked about all these things to keep up our energy, and the energy has been drained. It's just what happens as a teacher, right? So by June, we are feeling tired, and I'm with you on that. And I am totally okay with just maxing and relaxing right now because we deserve it.
So we just did 3 episodes, Chelsea. I'm wondering what your biggest takeaway is after doing those 3 episodes. We covered the different types of rest that teachers encounter. And by the way, they experience all of them all of the time on a daily. We talked about why rest is really important, where we talked about prioritizing ourselves, our family, and how it benefits work and productivity too as a bonus. And today we really talked about how we can put rest into our lives. What is your biggest takeaway?
I like how we discussed the 5 types of tired, and we truly experienced those as teachers. And then we went into the fact that we can experience human giver syndrome, which means that even when you're 5 types of tired, you're still wanting to give to others. And we talked about how it's okay to be a little bit self more as, ridiculous as that word might sound, it's okay to do that. And I know that for me, I have said no a lot more. I've been able to put up boundaries, and I've been okay with doing nothing. So giving myself that permission to just, like I said, chill out. I feel great about getting rest because it just makes me that much better of a human being. Okay, so that was more than one takeaway, but what about you? What's your biggest takeaway from the rest episodes?
I think my biggest takeaway is the need to explore the amount of pressure and the amount of societal pressure that exists to produce and to kind of constantly be a cog in the wheel, and how sometimes when I decide I'm going to take rest, I'm going to choose nothing, I'm going to choose, silence, that there is that voice in my head, and we're going to go back to the arugula, where I have to go and accomplish and finish and do something else, start something new. I always have to be moving forward. And that rest, really what it should do is allow me to truly move forward with whole heart, with the best possible outcomes, because I'm fully present for it. But it's kind of, looking at the societal pressure and how much of it is societal and influencing my reaction, and how much of it is something I'm putting on myself. Or it's a big mix. Yeah. So it's really thinking about that as I'm walking forward in my life at this point, and I guess deconstructing that a little bit more and deciding how I want the rest of my, hopefully my next 100 years to look like, right? That's kind of what it is for me. I'm going to be so healthy. I'm going to live to 150 probably.
That's going to be awesome. We're going to get so much good advice from you on the show.
We are going to have thousands of episodes, and it's going to be amazing. I can have like generational viewpoints, it'll be great.
Okay, so let's wrap this episode up before we do the next 150.
Let's put this series to rest.
Peaceful. Okay, let's do the takeaways.
Let's do it. 1, get intentional about getting rest. Make a conscious effort to prioritize and incorporate rest into your routine.
2, make time to include rest in your life. Dedicate time in your schedule to ensure rest becomes an integral part of your daily life.
And 3, set boundaries for rest. Establish clear boundaries to safeguard and prioritize rest in your personal and professional life.
All right, teachers, once again, it's time for us to take a rest on rest. Thank you so much again for listening. If you have a chance to leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to, we would really appreciate it. We absolutely hope you are getting the rest you need on your personal and professional journey in education. Until next time, be well
and do well.